Nyght, ride on the track.
What's going on? What's going on, people? What's going on? Welcome, welcome. Ready in the chat. I want you to say what's going on. Put a little happy face or whatever. Look, it's been almost a month. I know I've been missing in action, but I'm here today, people. How are you? How you guys are doing? I'm excited for this show tonight. It's been a long time coming, but life happens. Life is life, and right about now. So you know how that goes. So, in case you don't know what this is Champagne Confessions. Even though I'm not sipping on any champagne because it's hot, so a little water in the cup, but it's still cute. So, whatever you're sipping on, your Kool-Aid, your wine, whatever, grab your cup. Let's get ready for this conversation. It's going to be a fun one. I'm excited. So, I am Miss Maggie T. In case you don't know who I am, of course, if you do, how you doing, boo-boos? Say some hellos and everything else. But let's go ahead and get right on into it. So before I do, I want to do a motivational moment. You already know how we do. We start the evening off. Like I said, we always go to bed on a positive note. Don't ever go to bed in a bad mood or anything like that. Even if it's with your partner, y'all better get it together before you lay down. Don't wake up with that bad energy. So we'll start off with a little My Mental Space motivational, and it comes from, I see you in the audience. Come on, hey. What's going on, LL Cool J? How you doing? What's going on? Oh, I'm good. I am blessed and highly favored. Just glad to be here doing this show. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So the motivational quote is, let me go ahead and put that on up there so you guys can get a little bit of motivation. And this is brought to you by My Mental Space Incorporated. As you guys know, we are, well, yeah, as you know, Kai is on vacation right now with the kids for the summer. So it's just me today, but I am your mental health coach, bringing you guys positive inspiration each and every day. And of course, you can reach out to me if you ever want to have some private coaching sessions, and it all is confidential. And the conversation between us stays in between us. So this quote here I thought was just very fitting because I've had me a challenging month, actually. It's kind of why I took a little break. And this quote here just kind of gets you to think that it's okay to take some time away to be to yourself. And it says, I know what it's like to need a break, to need to check out and withdraw and do nothing. And that's okay. Don't put pressure on yourself to get back to normal right away. Take your time and take as much time as you need. Don't even rush it. Feel your feelings, and it's okay to feel it, but at the same time, use this time to heal. Okay? I'm just going to leave it on there for a moment and just everybody just throw your, positive affirmations if you want to add to this comment, what you think about it. But think about that. Our life is, especially now with this economy, just the way the world is set up. And then, of course, the summer months, everybody's hot, irritable. It seems like breakup time is the summertime because everybody want to be, summer fine and, quit the boo in the summer. So now your feelings are hurt and you're in your, you know how that goes, people. So you're emotional. You want to yell, you want to cry, you want to scream, it's okay to get all of those emotions out. Don't ever feel bad about being human. The main part about this is when you're overwhelmed and there's so much on your plate and you got so many people pulling you whichever way, business owners, school, mother life, whatever the situation may be, you need to also dedicate some time to get your life back together. Cut off those phones, turn the internet off, get off the social media platform and just unwind. If you got to sit down and write something, you got to do it, but you got to have another time to regroup, refresh, and keep it going. If you don't do that, your body itself is going to tell you it's time to shut down, and you don't want to crash and burn. That's not a good feeling. That exhausted feeling where it's like you just flop on the bed and you don't realize I don't slept 8, 12 hours because I was so tired. Don't let your body tell you it's time to sit down. Just go ahead and dedicate some time to sit down, even if it's for 15 minutes of your day, where you close up that door. You sit in your car right before you go in the house. You woo saw right before you go in, just to gather your thoughts before you go in there. Just do that. Just a little bit of time. And that's me telling myself that, because I look, I could tell you all day about me, about you, but am I following that? Not quite. So, but I'm glad you guys are here. I see quite a few of you are in the chat. Say hello, happy hands and everything. I hope you guys are having a blessed day, and just let me know how you're feeling today. How are you feeling? How is your my mental space? How is that? What's your mood for today? And I would love to hear from you. So let's go ahead and get this quote off, though. I appreciate you guys being here and share this content out. That's the only way anybody can know about this. And if you're new to the channel, hello, how you doing? How you doing? So let's go ahead. I'm going to have some fun with this one. It's been a minute, and I have a special guest to invite on the show. I'm excited. So let's go ahead and bring her on in. So we have special guest Jazz. She is an author and creator of the blog, The Art of Infection. Let me go ahead and put that little screenshot up there so you guys can go ahead and get started to follow her. Let me move this out the way so you can get her Instagram there. You guys go ahead and follow her. If you are like me that loves to read blogs and things like that, follow her right there. The Art of Affection Official. That's hers. But I'm going to bring her on so she can kind of tell you a little bit about it. But it's a recovery blog about codependency and toxic relationships. And it's kind of fitting going into the theme of tonight. So it's amazing that, things like that connects. But let's go ahead and bring her on. Let's take this off and bring up my girl, Miss Jazzy. Are you ready?
Hello, everyone.
Hi, lady. How are you? I'm going to take this banner off so you can see it. But how are you, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling? I've been, that quote, did it touch you? Did you get something from it, or?
Yeah, most definitely. I taken a break from social media over the weekend to just, tap out and also enjoy the weather, because we had at least a day where it wasn't sweltering hot here in Kansas. So I consumed the entire day outside reading and just soaking up some sun. So yeah, definitely took a break.
So hot and sweltering in Kansas. What is the temperature? Because I'm in Georgia, so it's like 95 degrees probably right now here. So what's hot for you in Kansas?
Right now we have it's pretty mild right now, but normally it can reach up to 110 here. And we have humidity that's at least 80%. So it feels
So you're kind of like Georgia with that humidity. Oh my goodness. Oh my
We get
Lord.
everything.
So
In Kansas, we say, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. That means it'll constantly change.
I call Georgia weather kind of bipolar. We get all four seasons in a day, depending. Let's say, when the summer is kind of dwindling down, it's kind of fallish, then you got winter, yeah, it's like we get ice in like March and April, so it's really weird here. So, you never know what to expect. Put on a sweatshirt, take off the sweatshirt, then you got shorts on. Let me switch on the sweatpants. You don't know how to prepare for this weather. And then so I just always say take your light jacket or whatever, no matter what, the situation is. So I'm glad to have you today. And I want you to tell me a little bit about, who you are. Now we know you're from Kansas, or are you from Kansas, born and raised?
Yes, born and raised.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about your blog.
So my blog is called The Art of Affection, which
Mhm.
is a recovery blog about my journey to recover from toxic relationships and codependency. It's a blog where I talk about my history of toxic relationships, that is romantic, platonic, and also in my own family dynamic. And then
Mm.
also where I talk about my relationship patterns that I discover along the way, how I'm making attempts to make new connections and new traditions for myself. And also, just trying to have the goal of building healthy and loving relationships.
And I'm getting ready to just say that, now if you guys saw the Instagram, please go ahead and follow her. Now, if you are looking at the description, you can actually see the link to her blog on the description, and you can click on that. Go ahead and take a look at it as we're speaking. And then, of course, just let her know that, just show her some engagement. We're just definitely trying to get a lot more people to pay attention to it, because the topic of the day is something that a lot of people shy away from, because they don't realize that they are codependent. What's going on, Jamie? How are you? How you doing? You're showing your flowers. I'm so happy. Hope you're in a good mood today. And I can't wait to see you July 13th. I believe you might be coming. I'm not sure. We have an event coming up in Atlanta, July 13th. You guys get your tickets so we can meet and greet soon. But let's go ahead and get a little bit. We're not going to stay too long on this topic, but I think it's a bit. We had a little conversation about it earlier, well, yesterday about it, and a little bit of a hot topic. Let me sip my little water here. This is going to get interesting. Look at me from the choke. So, sorry about that. Corey, as everybody knows, is Tia's ex-boo, ex-husband. He actually got, spoke his from his silence. We haven't heard anything about him, how the divorce affected him. Of course, we see Tia all on social media, loving her life and living her life. But the question is, I guess they're starting to ask, Corey, how are you feeling? So, he broke his silence on his emotional health following his divorce to Miss Tia. You guys know her from Sister. You guys know her, infamous. Of course, I'm not going to get too deep into the conversation. It's the key points was basically, Tia decided, after years of being married, a mother, she decided that, you know what, I kind of want to be an individual. Marriage life for me, kind of beyond that at this point. Of course, she's a career woman, and I'm sure as she is a career woman, their time together anyway was probably always, difficult to do anyway. And also being a mother. A lot of times when people get into these marriages, and of course, that's the traditional thing to do. That's how your parents started. You going by everybody else's, oh, you should get married. That's the goal out of relationships. That's the life. So maybe when she did get married at the time, she wanted that, you know, in love, and it wasn't even an infidelity situation. So neither, they weren't cheating on each other. She just outgrew that lifestyle, if you will. And she decided, I no longer want to be married anymore. But with Corey, he just came out and was like, for him, it affected him a lot more. He was saying he was crying every night because his family was everything. So codependent on that type of life, her and his life, children in his life. He probably never saw that they were going to ever get a divorce. And we don't know what's behind closed doors in that relationship. Was it happy times? You never know. But I don't dwell too deep into celebrity personal life. But at the end of the day, they decided to go ahead and go their separate ways. And they did it very classy. So it wasn't a lot of, craziness going on. They just went on and did it. So what do you think about that? With him being so hurt about it and, emotional about it. Now he's speaking out about it. And then your thoughts on Tia making a decision to end her marriage. How do you feel about that? We can make this a little short.
I mean, to be honest, like divorce is an emotional process to go through personally, like period altogether. So,
Mhm.
I mean, that is just breaking up an entire space, a life that you had with somebody, even, like consolidating a house and so many other processes that goes along with it. So
Yeah.
him feeling emotional about it is totally a normal thing. There's always somebody who feels it more than the other person. That's always a normal situation. It's the same way when they say that in a relationship, there's always one person that loves somebody more than the other. So I mean, him being able to say and admit that, being broken up with and having this divorce going through, it was tough for him. That's just to let other people know that, like, divorce is not an easy thing
Easy
to
thing to do.
break up.
Hmm.
Even if Tia
Hmm.
herself is showing on Instagram and social media that she's having a great life and doing all these things that's showing and freeing, that doesn't mean that she doesn't feel any type of emotional separation from that either.
And what I can say, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think there was an article where she mentioned that I think she tried to test the waters with dating, possibly. I've seen an
Hmm.
article about that, and she was basically like, I guess, after being a married woman and who she is, I guess the dating pool is a lot different for her now. And it's just like to be desired or approached to date and things like that. It's a little different for her, something she's not used to. I'm sure, and they assuming they just sweethearts, they loved each other and it went into that. But actually being out there and being ridiculed, like, oh, okay, well, you threw away your other marriage, but you want to get out there and date. Think about dating is people look too much into dating. It's it not everybody when they're dating are looking for their potential, you know, future this or future that. It's just I'm out here having a good time. I'm single, you're single. We like to go out and have a good time.
Hmm.
There's different things. A lot of people put so much emphasis on that. Oh, but you're an ex-married woman. You shouldn't be out there, so soon and things like that. But, what do you think about that?
I mean, who is it for society to determine when we're ready to be in a relationship or not? I mean,
Mhm.
I also feel like at the same time, moving on very quickly can also prevent us from being able to grieve relationships that we should be spending
Absolutely.
that time with, especially when it comes to a marriage on top of that. So,
Hmm.
I also understand the fact of being free for the first time and being able to experience new things. And I know being out of the game as long as she has and coming into the dating world now, that's got to be a culture shock together.
Oh,
I cannot imagine, trying to figure out how dating even works in today's world if you've been out of the game for like a good chunk, like 10 years or so. So, yeah, that's a totally different type of thing that she's trying to navigate for herself. But it's also good for her to know that maybe it's just not something that she's ready to approach right now.
yeah, and that's absolutely okay. And it's the same thing for me. At first, I was like, "Whoo," my divorce ended a while ago, and I was like, I can date a little bit here and there, but the time to date and schedule time to hang out with these people and things like that, it's time consuming, it's exhausting, and then everybody, not on the same page sometimes when it comes to dating. They're looking for one thing, I'm looking for this, and it's like, you know what? Never mind. Let me just, you know, be to myself, get myself together. Not necessarily looking for anything, but it's just like, oh, I'm out there,
Right.
newly single. It's fun. yay, but after a while, it's like, oh, that's kind of exhausting. It says, Jamie said, I really want to know why she wanted to divorce. Seriously, was it infidelity? No. They said in the article it wasn't anything like that. Was it abuse? Of course, we wouldn't know. They wouldn't come out and say it, but she was attracted to him or she wasn't attracted to him anymore. I look at it like sometimes you can outgrow people.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you thought when you went into it that you were compatible in certain ways, but when you start to, you get the representative at first when you get to know somebody, then you realize, okay, I love this person, but still, even those layers are not peeled back yet, so you're not getting everything. But when you finally get to know the inner, deeper person, you're living with them, a lot does kind of change, and some people aren't used to adjusting to that. And it's like, I expect you to be this certain way, but now we're growing together. Hey, how you doing, Matt Mike? How you doing? And people change and we outgrow each other. Not every situation is going to be that. Sometimes when it happens, that's when you kind of get into the counseling. If you're really trying to make this work and just realize, hey, things are changing. We are getting older. Kids are, a factor in this situation. It used to be just us two, finances and things like that. There's so much that goes into but we're not going to get too deep into this topic because, that's a whole nother conversation. But thank you, Jamie, for asking though. I appreciate it. So let's get right into the purpose of this topic though. Kind of goes into that codependency. So let's get into it. Today we are talking about codependency. If you haven't noticed by the channel, click on her blog because she speaks a lot about that. It's in the description again, and I'll make sure the link is also attached to the group chat, so you can get a copy of it too. So, and let her know. Hey, follow on Instagram and let her know that you are following now, and leave her some feedback. I do love it. I do love it. So let her know you're from Champagne Confessions. But let's talk about it. What is it? And we actually have a definition of it. Kind of get into it here. Let's talk about it. Let me move this better. So, codependency, what is it? Do you want to go ahead and just give that definition there? You don't mind?
Yeah, so like it states is that it's defined as an excessive reliance on a partner. It's always emotional and psychological reliance. One thing that we like to say about codependency or being codependent people, we are always other focused, which means that we don't really worry about ourselves, but we always focus on other people. Now, one thing about this definition is that it does say that, this could be providing support to someone who has an illness or an addiction that can take and reliance can be in a different forms of many different kinds of relationships. But also what I like about this definition is that it says it's not only pertaining to an illness or addiction, because codependency can be developed in so many different ways, which is something that we're going to talk about later about the different forms of codependency that doesn't really have anything to do with an illness or an addiction.
Okay. And that's perfect. So I'm just going to leave it up there for a moment. I hope you guys kind of read that, but we're going to really break this down so you can kind of get the characteristics, how it's developed, and then maybe recognize, am I codependent? So it might be yourself that we're talking about instead of you dealing with somebody that's codependent on you. So this is kind of going to help you guys. You already know that Champagne Confessions come here and educate you. So let's go ahead and get right into the next one. Thank you for that, though. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about it. So the question is, how is it developed? Now that we know what codependency is, how is it developed? And of course, we have our research here. And of course, we'd like to give you guys some facts and things, but a person's upbringing, past experience and relationships with others are some of the most significant factors in influencing the development of codependency. This means addiction, alcoholism, abuse, emotional, physical, and neglect, as well as generational trauma can cause this. That generational trauma. So it kind of goes to the aspect of, honestly, family.
Right, exactly. So if you have a parent that displays codependent behavior, eventually that is something that you end up learning yourself. So a lot
Mhm.
of these behaviors that we have come from the upbringing that we have in our own households. So one thing to say about it is like when you how you develop your relationships, whether that's romantic or platonic, or how you socialize with other people, your first examples of that comes from your own family. So the only way you're going to know how to function in relationships and how relationships are supposed to be is by seeing the example of what your parents went through. So
Mhm.
that is information, even though that you're young, you're absorbing that. And that's way that
Mhm.
you figure out how you're supposed to be acting and what kind of relationships that you have, because we do model that over our parents.
That's correct. That's correct. And of course, we can go into details about the different characteristics in a moment, but
Mhm.
I can honestly relate that with the generational trauma that I haven't, incorporated within myself from what I've seen as far as relationships, how it should be, how long I've held on to relationships and shouldn't, things I overlooked, all that behavior I saw in my household. So it's very, correct there. So how is developed, guys, if you guys are kind of familiar with it, just go ahead and throw some things in the chat. Let me know your understanding of codependency. But we're now getting ready to go into what are the types of codependency. So each one we're going to kind of bring the, we can break it, we can do it, piece by piece if you want to do it that way.
Yeah,
But
it'd
the
be
first
easier to do it
one is actually, these are the, take notes, people. We're going to take our time with it as much as we can. But the first type of codependency is caretakers. And Jazz, just tell us a little bit about that one there.
So, caretakers are people who love to take care and raise other adults. They
Hmm.
help people out in the means of money, shelter, food, and etc. They get self esteem and validation from being useful or playing a role in somebody's life. They also are a person that deals with a lot of financial hardship, because when you are a caretaker, taking care of other people, that is going to squeeze you and put you in financial hardship quite often.
Hmm. Oh,
So
yeah.
that is definitely a trait that I totally identify with. I do identify myself as a caretaker, and one other trait as well, but that is something that I feel like caretakers are like number one in a lot of codependency, because it's not only just taking care of adults, but it can also end up, crippling our own children, and it can also be, crippling our own friends.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Is it can be all the above, not just like a romantic relationship. I do have a caring heart a lot. And I do sometimes will put myself to the side. I mean, of course I'm moving beyond that, but I used to be that person that it's like, oh my God, I'm breaking down here. I need you right now. Okay, let me hold on. Wait a minute, whatever I was doing, that's not important right now. Okay, what's going on? And then my whole day is involved in worried about you and making sure you're okay. If you don't have it, it's like, okay, well, here you go. And as far as, like you said, with children, I try not to do that with my own. Like I have an 18-year-old about to be 19. She's out there in the adult world. I'm trying to teach her independence right now, and it's like when she's like, Mom, I don't know what to do. Figure it out. Research. I have her think and analyze everything before she do this big panic. Mama, I need your help. I, the way I explain it to her is like, what happens if I'm not here to help you? So like she's in the work world, wants to work, and she want to look for a job, and I don't know what to say, and I don't know what to put on my resume. I don't know how to do an interview. She's getting used to that now, as well as being financially literate, where
Mhm.
now she's trying to save her money and not depend on me all the time. So now she's understanding, oh, you know what? I like those shoes, but I don't think I should go get those shoes, Mom. You know what? I got a little savings account. I think I need to. So she's starting to be independent. With my mother, it was more of a caretaking. I'll fix your plate. Everybody sit down, all of that. Like she still does it for Thanksgiving. And it's like now I was like, Mom, sit down. We can go grab our own place. You don't have to sit at everybody's table. You don't have to be that. nurturer all the time. We're adults here. We can do it ourselves.
Right.
So that taking care of someone, it was always embedded in me, especially with the relationship. I was a, caterer to someone type of deal. But at the same time, I was catering and loving and giving them all of that of me. But what about me?
Right.
It wasn't in return. So I realized I was doing that a little too much and I was losing myself in that particular relationship. But let's go ahead and get into another characteristic. The Bob
So
the Builders. Yes. Explain that little Bob the Builder. You guys know who Bob the Builder. You got some children.
it's a victim. I don't know. Can you fix it? You think you can?
I thought it was the
So
cutest thing.
So,
So,
bottom builders are
mhm.
people who love other people who are projects. So, they love potential and willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears into improving a person. So, they can turn people into the type of partner that they need. So that means that the person that they're working on is 100% physically or emotionally unavailable or both. So they're willing to remove all the things that makes them unavailable so they can be available to them. They always see the good in others. They ignore red flags
Mm.
constantly. They sit in denial about the person they are with or in the situation they have gotten involved in. They thrive off of hope that the person or the situation will get better over time. They stay in relationships longer than they should in hopes that the investment that they have put into that relationship will start giving back to
Hmm.
them. I will say about my relation with this. I think intersectionality definitely exists. So you can have a little bit of everything. But this is
Mhm.
something that I definitely did. I was a person who was obsessed with being with people who were a project because I always saw the potential in them of what they could be for me, the type of partner that I needed. And so even if they sat there and told me that they weren't capable of doing something, I thought that I could convince them to be that.
Mm.
And that would cause me to not only caretake them and start to raise them, that would also cause me to start investing, my money, my time, my energy into this person. And then it also turned around into, getting frustrated and angry when the person stops complying with me about it because I'm trying to turn them into something that either they're A, not ready to be, or B, don't want to be at all. And that was me not accepting the situation that I was in and not accepting the person for who they were.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that. Of course, I give my brief story about it. Married, well, long-term relationship, well, two. One was high school sweetheart. That's where my babies came from. You know, young, dumb, don't know any better than I think we're in love. A lot of back and forth of infidelity, of course. All of this, but it was like, you know what? I just want the family life, and it should be, the parents together type of situation, and of course, I grew up seeing it, stepmother, stepdad and mother together. They're
Right.
still together, they're still married, and the dynamic in my mother's side is like, oh, marriage is just the goal, that's the golden ticket, and we've been married for 40 years, but you're unhappy. That's, you see what I'm saying? So
Right.
it wasn't successful marriages. It was just like, yeah, we're together. I'm dealing with your bullshit, but disclaimer, people. But yeah, we're married. So it's like, yeah, that's the end all. So I'm with this person. We're together. We love each other, but we were young, and we realized that too. That we were young and didn't know any better, and
Mhm.
of course, pregnant and well, children became. And after a while, we realized we just wasn't meant for each other. So we went our separate ways. That was about 5 or 6 years or so. Then in between that 3 years, I
Mhm.
dated a little bit casually, but then I got kind of bored with that and decided, hey, I'm meeting somebody new relationship. And this person was a project. You know, I'm a business person. I'm a goals person. I don't, I'm just not a 9 to 5. I want to get out there and be productive. I want to move, up a position. I don't like to sit.
Yeah.
Ex-spouse, complacent, complainer. I don't like this. I don't want to do this. I didn't want to do anything else about it. It's like, well, come on. You're a great writer. Wrote poetry, very intelligent. That's what attracted me, everything. But other than that, you didn't want to use those. So I'm trying to help you see the potential in yourself, overlooking and, putting too much energy and effort into something that wasn't going to budge or change,
Right.
you
Exactly.
know. So I can relate to that. And that was 13 years of a relationship. So that's something I just kind of got out of divorce. But I was overlooking the red flags and things like that. And it was like I became something I wasn't of myself, because it's like the things I wanted to do, and I would kind of not do them like that until I realized, like, I'm stopping my own dreams and my goals to cater and try to mold myself into something that you like. And I couldn't do that. So let's look at some of these comments. Then we're gonna move into the next one. I tried to fix it. I was drained behind it. It can be very draining.
Yeah, it's extremely exhausting. It pulls everything out of you when you're trying to fix something with somebody. And to be honest, I think it's just learning how to move to the space of acceptance, because that's just meaning that this person's not for you. It's not what you're needing. And we can't really disrupt people in anything like that anymore. I had to learn that whatever type of environment that a person has created for themselves, that is the type
Mm-hmm.
of environment that they want to stay in. Like, who am I to come into their life and say, you need to change everything?
Everything. And you can't change people that don't want to be changed.
No.
You can beg, cry, all of that. And we might have talked about it at some point. And of course, it sounded beautiful. It sounded great. But when they actually apply themselves and you see that they're not really, maybe they were just doing it just to make interest in you. And after a while, I realized I can't mold this person to who I want them to be. This is who they
Right.
are. So
This
I
is who
have to accept that.
and it's
Hey, six
painful.
man.
It's painful.
Oh my goodness. I was like, I started thinking it's like, and then of course I felt it. I was kind of like foot out the door situation, but I was like, but
Yeah,
maybe.
because the thing is like when you're in the foot, like you got that foot out the door, but you're like, but what if I leave and everything changes? And then the person who gets to get them after me gets to reap the benefits of all
Of
of
what
my
I built.
effort.
Ooh, you said something right there, ma'am. So that's the Bob the Builder, everybody. If you guys are Bob the Builders, take a listen, write them down. I hope you're getting something from this breakdown of characteristics. But hmm, this one right here,
Yeah. This is
enablers.
also another popular one, which are people who are enablers. So people who are enable people with addictions or bad behaviors, always willing to fend those people and their actions, cannot stand up for themselves, gives into being guilt tripped or not for not feeding into their addiction or financially supporting it, carries a lot of fear that this person may die or severely injure themselves. Like something about their life is going to make you feel like if you don't help them, if you're not available, whatever that may be, whatever the consequences of their actions, it's going to be your fault. And you also are a person that deals with a lot of financial hardship. And
Mhm.
I remember being in a CODA meeting and this woman who is definitely an enabler with her son. And she just said, I realized at one moment that me enabling him has disabled him, which means that she enabled him to the point of disability where he wasn't able to figure out anything in his life on his own because he relied on her to do everything for him.
Mm. And I'm glad you said that. And of course, I had, a family member like that. Um, she was bouncing from house to house, grandparent watching her.
Mhm.
Mom didn't sit down long enough to teach her and show her how to do these type of deals. So she's, in her 20s now.
Yeah.
Everything was kind of, given to her, babied her. She was a baby, picked up, carried around everywhere, and she even admitted, she was like, I never learned how to be an adult.
Right.
So now, there's behavior and things that's going on. She has a childlike mindset where, she's out there playing and ripping and running and not doing things that she needs to do and take things seriously. But it's like, well, you enabled that. Now she has to be an adult out here and don't know how to do so. Not saying it's too late, but the maturity level is definitely not there for the age that she's in. So it's a
Right.
lot of learning on her own. And sometimes you're influenced by the wrong things. You get into the wrong people. Don't start messing up computer. Hold on, get this off my screen. Uh, so enabling somebody, and we can do
Exactly.
that for our family members. Addiction.
I definitely did it for a best friend. I used to have a best friend of like 8 to 10 years, and she was a very toxic person. And I used to constantly defend and apologize for her behaviors. She was the type of person that constantly had drama going on around
Yeah,
her all the time. If it wasn't a dude that was looking for her, there was somebody else that was looking for her. She was doing vindictive things on purpose just to start the drama, but always sat there and acted like people just hated on her.
hated her.
And
Yeah.
that was just how people acted towards her out of nowhere. And really what it came down to is that she was just being a vindictive person. And the thing is that with me being the enabler of that relationship, I prevented her from having to suffer the consequences of her actions a lot. So
Oh,
I
those people
remember,
are not your
yeah,
friends. Oh, whatever. Everybody just
yeah,
hating on you. Whatever,
yeah.
whatever.
And it's
It's not
never
you.
good when someone's like, why are you friends with them? And then you have to figure out, like, why am I friends with them? So I just got tired of defending our friendship and defending her behavior, because I just had to let her deal with whatever the consequences were for either her running her mouth or doing something vindictive to somebody else. There was some way that she had to learn, and I was preventing her from being able to learn that.
And it can kind of happen too when you are getting the treatment as well. And it's
Mhm.
just like, they break into this, my mama, my this, my trauma in my life. And they don't want to grow from that. And they want to use it as their crutch every
Right.
time something happens. Just because I saw this happen to me. My mom used to do this. My dad used to do that. Oh my goodness, this happened to me. So now every time something happened, you are a victim.
Right.
Or
It's
you're
really
treating
what's
me like crap
right now.
because I don't know how to communicate. I'm sorry. Oh my God, I didn't mean that. It's just, you know how I am, my mind and this and trauma. And it's like, that's not an excuse. You are very capable of knowing what you're doing and how you're treating me. But because I love and care for you so much, it's like, I don't want to walk away from you because I do know about your history. We've known each other a long time. I grown up with you. So I know your family, this, that, and the other. I know too much about you, so I'm feeling sorry for you at the same time. So
Mhm.
it's like, oh, you know what? Why should she talk to you like that? That's just how she is,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So
Exactly.
definitely think about it, people. Are you that enabler? Do you go give mama the money to buy the drugs and she's a fiend or something, and she calls you like, I'm just, oh no, just help me out. And you keep doing it, or that person that you keep enabling and they keep using and keep using and they keep acting up, in and out of jail. Enabler. Bailing them out. Enabler. So let's get right into the next one. We're moving right along here. Control freaks. Let's get into that
So,
one.
control freaks are people who have a compulsion to control everyone and everything around them in order to feel emotionally or physically safe. They carry a lot of anxiety and unstable mood swings when they are put in positions of feeling out of control. They will do anything and everything to manipulate others into doing what they want, have a difficult times letting things and people just be, has high standards of expectations and a bottomless pit of demands. They have compulsion with perfectionism, and they can also be verbally or physically abusive.
So some of those manipulators that kind of get in there and, play with your mindset and make you feel like, oh, I'm controlling the situation. You're with me. And that's it.
And
There's
it's
no out.
also
There's nobody out there for you. So I'm gonna make you feel terrible also at doing that.
it could be that. I think most people may see control freaks a lot in their own parents. So, everything's got to be a certain way all the time. They're not willing to compromise with anybody on anything. Like they think their way is the only way, and that's the only way to be. It's their way or the highway all the time. So, and when they're thrown into situations, especially like a child going off to college and they don't have a way to control what school they go to, not being able to stop your partner from leaving you, so you're going to try
Mm.
to find ways to stop them from being able to walk away from you, so you'll do whatever it takes. Control freaks are also people who have no problems with sabotaging people as well.
Oh yeah.
So if they are somebody who has a really close friendship with somebody and they're falling in love with someone, they'll try to talk them into the relationship doesn't work for them. And so it's just a lot of those type of situations. They're also the type of people you may deal with in your own workspace. The people who micromanage you are also people who could be control freaks that feel like your performance and your attendance is a reflection of them.
Mm. And I like that. And then, about that, it's just, there was an example of a situation. I was talking to somebody about that whole school thing. Some parents will live through their child.
Hmm.
They didn't have all the resources and things like that as, a child themselves. So it's like, I want to change you into something I didn't get an opportunity to do. So they live through that child. It's like, no, you don't need to be this. You actually need to be this. And you need to go to this type of school. You need to do, this is how I want your life to be, and check in with me. And this is, so what happened with this young lady, she did the education, she did what she did. And of course, she was one of those mothers that is like, you got to call me every day. I need to know your every walking day of life,
Yes.
basically. Let's sit on the phone and let's do things together. She didn't have an identity. It was always, I got to go call mom, check in with her,
Right.
and what happened is she took on a career or education that she wasn't really into. It wasn't her passion. She wasn't happy, but she was feeling like if she don't do it, she would let her mother down. And, and she had a lot of issues with her identity and fighting with that. It's like, I want to do what I want to do, but I also
Mhm.
don't want to hurt my mother's feelings. And that becomes a problem. So what I tell my children all the time, whatever you want to do it because you want to, not because someone's giving you that idea. What is it that you want to do? Because you have to live with that career, that
Right.
job. You have to do that every day, not me. I have my own life. I have my own journey. You got to set your own journey for you. And a lot of people are molded to be somebody else that they're not. And it's hard to say no because they're making them feel like you're not good enough. Well, if you're not this, what are you doing? It's not good enough for me. You know,
Right.
your cousin over here, she's this and that, cum laude, this and that. And what you're trying to do don't make sense to me. That's not good enough. So control freaks. It can be your own family members too.
Rinks, exactly.
So, but I like this one. Let's get right into it. The people pleaser. Hmm.
So a lot of people know what a people pleaser is, and people identify with this a lot too. A person who will always agree with statements or opinions of others has a difficulty saying no. Their self esteem is dependent on others liking them and validating them. They worry about not being liked, and the fear of having a difference of opinion will cause them to be rejected. They will set aside their desires and needs in order to satisfy somebody else's. They have issues with making executive decisions, and they are
Hmm.
very vulnerable to being manipulated by others.
Okay. People pleaser. Um, I know a lot of people like that. And at one point, I also wanted to be validated and, you know, um, but after the point of me worrying about what other people thought,
Hmm.
or felt. This is how this is how you should carry yourself. I think this is the way it should be. And judgmental people, oh, what? That's, I don't like this. I'm disagreeing with this. I don't think you should do that. Um, it was like, okay, well, let me alter the way I do these things to
Right,
please everybody else, make them satisfied. And, you know, I'm just not going to do that because I'm afraid of the feedback and the rejection or
right.
people that, opposes of it and things like that. But um that was very short lived though, especially when I got into this type of platform and I realized you can't please everybody.
No, you really can't. And it's very confusing to be in that type of position as a people pleaser because everybody has different standards. Everybody has different expectations. And when you're constantly listening to other people about how you should act, what you should do, and trying to meet the demands and satisfactions of other people, you forget about yourself and you forget about listening to yourself and what you need and what you desire. But I think a lot of us go through that, especially when we were younger, trying to make friends
Mhm.
and trying to fit in
Mhm.
high school. We were willing to do whatever it takes in order to please the people that we want to be a part of, just so we can be included in something. So I think that is something that some people have done when they were younger. The sad part is that not everybody grows out of that, and so that gets carried on into their entire relationships and even their own workplaces. They volunteer to do more work. They volunteer to do a lot of things, hoping that they're going to get something in return for that, or just to feel like they are a part of something and they're important.
And I think that's where that social media comes in with that too. They're sad on the inside, but just that picture that you posted, that video that you did, if you don't get the reaction that you expected, you're pulling it back down, or you're afraid to put it out there because you don't know how the reaction's going to be. I gotta, get all this done, and I gotta look a certain way. You're not trying to just be your natural self. You're being a mask of yourself on social media. So everybody thinking you're just this comedian. You're just perfect, and then you're in your feelings when you're not getting, it's social media, so it's open platform for everybody to react however they want to react to it. And you're argumentative with that person because they don't agree with you. Well, you're just a hater. You don't, and it's like me, I personally was like, you have to sometimes, especially with this type of platform, not everybody's gonna like it. I don't like the way you're talking. I don't like your topics. But I like feedback. I like criticism. I
Hmm.
take it as a way to say, okay, well, maybe I can do it a little bit differently like this, but I'm not going to change who I am because one person gave me a down vote. And it's like, oh man, now I got to, I'm not going to make that affect me. Now, if it's more people saying kind of similar things, then I'll, go back and look at it like, okay, well, maybe I do need to change my approach just a little bit. But
Right.
I'm still going to be myself though. So accepting the criticism and not being so hurt by it, look at it as a way to help you improve
Right.
instead of trying to get validation that your platform is good, or that design that you created was wonderful. Maybe they don't like it. I don't like your art. Sorry. It's not my cup of tea. That's okay. Somebody else might like it though.
Right.
Just kind of look at it. And Jamie said, appreciate and recognize is my love language, so I can see it. Okay, so being appreciation and recognition is my love language. So you just like to be, and there's nothing wrong with saying you're amazing, you're great, but also learn to tell yourself that with those daily affirmations. I'm
There's like
amazing.
a big difference between needing acceptance and then and recognition or even reassurance. Like
Hmm.
there's a big difference between that and people pleasing. People pleasing is basically you are desperate for this person to tell you that they
Yeah.
need this. So you're willing to do whatever it takes so that you can receive that from them.
Yes.
So if you're not dependent on that from a person, then it's definitely not a codependency type of characteristic that you have.
Hmm. And and that's because I'm like that. I do love to be recognized in my roles and my job and things like that, but I'm not begging for it either. It's like
Right.
I know that I'm doing a great job, and hey, acknowledge me. That's thank you, but I'm not that's not going to make me or break me if they don't even give it even a second thought. I know the job I've done. I know what my metrics are. I know how I'm doing and performing, and I can see my own numbers, so I can validate for myself that I'm doing a heck of a job. So, but not living off of that. Like social media, you post all these things, and you just really want somebody to just react to it every single time. That can be a codependency. So let's get right on to it. And we're getting ready to go into almost an hour here. We're moving right along. So let's talk about after that control freaks, people pleasers, the avoid person.
Which is something that basically everyone is experiencing in the dating world, period. An avoidant person is a person who has issues with intimacy and vulnerability. They feel uncomfortable with emotional situations and try to find ways to get out of them quickly. They create space in their relationships by keeping people at an arm's length. They will draw people towards them with charisma and outgoing personality, but if anyone gets too close, they push them away. They spend a lot of time in isolation, and they are usually workaholics who create physical and emotional space in their relationships. So basically, they use their job as a way to not be physically available to somebody or emotionally available to someone. So I think we all have dated a person or been around somebody who is just like that, that's very avoidant. They definitely make you feel like maybe there's something wrong with them or there's something wrong with you. Why can't they, engage with you on a certain level? And if anything gets too emotional, you can't find them anywhere. They're trying to change the subject, they're trying to leave the space. They're trying to, hide somewhere to where you can't find them physically because they're uncomfortable with the entire subject. And even that, with avoidant people, they can also be very defensive and combative about other things as well.
Let's see. And I see Matt Mike said recognition is one of the most underrated aspects of a relationship. Okay,
Hmm.
going back to that portion of it, but avoidance, and guilty for me.
Same. I was definitely an avoidant person. It's kind of funny because I went from being a super avoidant person who was very cold. I was also not very affectionate. I was insensitive to people. I would always come up with excuses to not show up to places. I would cancel last minute with people because I just thought that people didn't care if I was there or not, which was totally wrong because they did care.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, I would work myself to death so I didn't have to deal with a lot of things, especially if I was dealing with relationship issues, which was frequent when I was in toxic relationships. So I would just spend all of my time at work and I would just use it as an excuse for me not having to deal with this person whenever I wanted to. So, and anything, if you cried in front of me, I was not going to give you a hug. I don't know what to do. I'm going to freeze up. I can't touch you.
Yeah. And I'm gonna add on to that. This is something I'm actually currently dealing with at this moment. Um, Freshly divorced. Kind of was used to, like, towards the end of my divorce, I became well, my therapist says you are now you do avoid people. Like I used to be that person that was desiring that companionship. You got to be around me all the time. What are you doing? You're not answering the phone. Why don't you want to spend time with me? Begged, 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 and pleaded, and was in my feelings about it.
Hmm.
So I had to learn to, in my own marriage, cope and be to myself during my emotional times. I deal with my own anxiety, depression, seasonal depression, PTSD, all of the above, and learning how to cope on my own. A lot of times I probably post it on social media or I'm acting a certain way, or it's like, oh my God, I'm falling out and I'm having an episode here. You need to understand what I'm going through. And then of course my communication styles was like, I don't know how to relay that to you. I expect you to know how to get it and understand it.
Right.
So yeah. So me and my partner was just two different styles of communicators. And it's like, how can I know when you're not telling me what's wrong? But I'm crying, I'm breaking down. Oh my God, you see it. And after a while, I was getting that cold shoulder. I don't, whatever. This is something you deal with all the time. So I was
Mhm.
coping by myself, dealing with it on my own. And what happened is I went from being very clingy and I need you now to the point it's like, nope, that's all right. I got this. I'll figure it out on my own. Or I'll find friends that understood and I relate to. And I started drifting away from that relationship concept.
Right.
So I was pulling myself out of there, like, you know what, I don't need you actually to deal with whatever I'm dealing with. Then, of course, I went into my own journey, getting therapy, seeking myself, dealing with my trauma, things like that. So, taking accountability for myself as well. So, I am not blaming that person for everything that's happened in that relationship. I also blame myself. What was my role in that situation? This, that, and the other. Why it didn't work out. So, I went from that to now I detached myself. I was attached. Now I'm detached to people. So I do avoid. Somebody gets too close, I pull away. It's like, nope, not ready for that right now. Sorry. And they're just crying their little hearts out. Oh, I really like you. I really want to be with you. What are you doing? It's like, I'm just not, I'm numb. I don't
Right.
have feelings and emotions. Um, I'm sorry. I feel sorry for you, but I'm also open and honest too. I'm letting you know up front, hey, I'm not interested in a relationship, but I like you and we can hang out sometime, but everybody's feelings are different in these situations. Like you said, you can be an amazing person to somebody and they're falling for that. But it's like, but I already told you I'm not looking for it to be anything else beyond that. I'm just looking for a friendship, hanging time, all of that. So that's me. That's definitely me. I'm that avoidant person.
Okay. I was the
Hmm.
reverse. So I was avoidant and then I became attached. And then I'm working on to detach, but detach in a healthy way to where I don't go back into the extreme, trying not to live in two different extremes.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that's what I'm working on and I'm trying to. So it's like people, you know, the way this show is set up, if you're new to this, and I'm seeing a lot more people joining in, thank you. Share this out. Drop on the description if you want to find out her blog. She's going to tell a little bit more about it at the end, kind of introduce you back to who she is if you're just now tuning in. But her blog has a lot to do, stories about her codependency. So you're going to get to see her stories and things. So it's in the description. Click on that link. Go ahead and put it in your favorites so you can go back to it. But now, since we've talked about, the different characteristics, you know, um, let's kind of talk about we kind of gave you a little bit. We'll do this briefly, real quickly,
Mhm.
but our personal experience with, you know, dealing with codependency. And if you want to go ahead and tell a little bit of your story.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely can. So I am a person who has been sober for 7.5 years. Um, Normally, in the realm of getting clean and getting sober, codependency or going into CODA meetings, which are Codependence Anonymous meetings, afterwards is mostly the natural flow of what some people decide to do. I actually was introduced to codependency because I stumbled upon it, I believe, in a podcast, another podcast at some other time about a sobriety podcast. And they talked about a book called Codependency No More by Melody Beattie, which is like the queen of codependency. She has so many books about it. But I bought the book, I read the book, I identified with probably 90% of that book. And I
Mhm.
realized like, oh, I have a codependency problem. But it was the early stages of my sobriety and I was just not ready to tackle that type of issue. So I was still having like chaotic relationships even though that I was getting sober. And I had, a relationship with a best friend. I've known her for since college, and we had a very codependent relationship as well. It's like the second relation friendship that I have developed from my other toxic friend that I had throughout high school. So um, basically what happened is that I tried to attempt to address my codependency at least a couple more times. I abandoned it every time when I got into a new relationship. And the last relationship I got into was a domestic violence situation. It was an abusive situation. It was not a great situation. Almost married the guy. Terrible decision. And when I got out of that, I was like, okay, I need to do more about what my codependency is. Like, how do I get with a person like that? And he's
Mm-hmm.
basically like my metaphorical rock bottom, is basically where I felt, but I didn't actually throw myself into Codependence Anonymous until I lost my friendship with my best friend of 15 years. Um, Codependency is kind of a weird process to go through. Um, it's hard because you have to let go of a lot of things that you identify with that makes you feel like you know what kind of person that you are. So it's like the same process of grieving, but it's mostly you're grieving people who are still alive. So in that process of codependency, I'm losing things, but then I'm also regaining things. And in the fell swoop of losing my best friend, which was extremely painful, I'm still dealing with that process of it. It's been about a year now that we haven't talked to each other. Um, in that whole fell swoop, I also regained something from that. It hurt, but I regained my relationship with my dad through working on my own codependency. So that is something that a relationship that was very toxic to me. It was a very codependent relationship with him. I did everything possible to have a relationship with him. He was just somebody who was just not proactive in my life at all. He just wasn't a person that wanted to even engage with me on that level, especially after my parents divorced and everything. So we now have a relationship that is comfortable for me and respectful of him. And that's the most important thing about it. But it's a lot of losing and regaining constantly. And it's just a big process of grieving, because also in that, I had to grieve old pieces of myself. And then I also got to rediscover other things about myself that I loved that I ditched because I was in codependent or toxic relationships with other people.
Okay. And as far as my story, my codependency came from, um, well, trauma from family. Learned early on. Well, this is even before the traumatic incident that happened. I always felt I have a twin sister, and I don't believe in you're my have this or have that. So I have siblings that has a different father. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know it as a child. Um, we knew stepdad was father, dad. That's the person when I was old enough to understand it, he came into our life when we was, toddlers, newborns. So that's all I knew. That's the life I knew. But I can tell there was a little bit of anger and differences in between his biological children compared to me and my twin sister. So of course I'm being the typical teenager, don't care, going through smelling myself. So I'm being a little bit more defiant and doing what I want to do. Of course I didn't take my test seriously. So based on test scores, they was like, well, you don't qualify to go to a magnet program. So you're gonna go to this easy high school, type of situation. So I wasn't challenged enough in that high school. And so I acted out. I was cutting class, whatever. He was also a heavy drinker. Then, so he would take it out and be verbally abusive and physically, and so I was looking at it like, why are they being treated this way, but why are we being treated that way? Long story short, one day I was skipping class, not giving a damn about being in school. I was acing everything. I'm very smart, but test scores was saying, oh, you're not. So I didn't care to be in class. I knew I can go in there and make up something and make an A in the class. Grown man, 40 years old, walking down the street. You already know how that story goes.
Mm-hmm.
Violated, raped. So that's kind of what built my relationship with I didn't really have that father figure. He was there, but we didn't have that close relationship.
Mhm.
And then I felt like my innocence was taken away. So I didn't feel like I had that innocence anymore. You took something away from me I can't give to anybody. So I did get into relationships wanting you to treat me special. I want you to treat me and love me and hug on me. And, I was very attached to people. That's how I went into my relationships. I want you to make me feel great, and
Mhm.
things like that. So that's how my relationships went with that because of that. And not the closest of my father. So I was looking for that companion to be that person for me. So that's just how it went for me. And when I found out about 19, I had my first baby. My auntie kind of came to me and was like, "Hey, guess what? By the way, the man that you've known all your life as your dad, that's not your biological daddy." Oh, really? So that makes a lot of sense. The differences.
Mhm.
And I defied my mother about it because she wasn't going to tell us. Her lies was like, "Oh, I was going to tell you eventually." No, you wasn't. So, yeah, that's where all of that kind of came into the factors. It's like my whole life is a lie. Now I'm going to find a companion to be that everything for me because I lacked all of that. That's not even my real father. I didn't have that love at home. It was more, put up with it because he's an alcoholic. This is just how he talks. Hush and be quiet. Deal with it.
Mhm.
That's what I was, that's how I was raised. So my relationships, I'm ignoring red flags. And, we're just in this relationship because I want a family life. I don't want to see I don't want to not have a two-parent home,
Mhm.
So I stood in my relationships longer than I should have because of that family dynamic that I so desperately wanted. I wanted to get married, this, that, and the other. That's what I thought. But
Mhm.
after finding myself, I realized maybe not so much. I'm doing this because this is what I grew up to see. My aunties, they value that, oh, we're together 30 years, but you're unhappy, miserable. I was unhappy and miserable, but I dealt with it because of that. And after a while, I had to start choosing myself in that situation. So that's where that came in at. Deep story, I know.
I definitely relate to a lot of that. I just say, with my personal upbringing, I would just say that I'm a child of neglect. My parents, once they reached a certain point of, just being a parent, they went through a divorce in my teens. And, my sister went off to college and they just stopped being my parents. Like my dad
Mhm.
checked out, before I even turned 12. Like, even though I grew up in a two-parent household until I was 15, but my dad just checked out of his entire job altogether. Like he just wasn't fucking feeling it. My parents went
Mhm.
through a nasty divorce that I was thrown in the middle of it. Me and my mom were constantly fighting. I don't think I lived at home for about 2 years when I was in high school. I was with my toxic best friend, living with her because her family was way better than mine. My friends were my temporary family. And it was just a lot of different type of spaces, but I had to finish raising myself. My parents were done. They weren't doing anymore. So I had to figure out how to do what I needed to do for myself, and I had to create my own family outside of my original home. So
Mhm.
I definitely understand that.
Oh yeah. And so we're gonna get into some things, and I just realized we was doing the styles, but really we didn't even get to the characteristics. So we can kind of just go over the like the subtopics, just the titles. We don't
Mhm.
have to kind of go deep into it, but characteristics is denial patterns.
Right.
Got your low self-esteem patterns. You have your compliance patterns, control patterns, and then of course, once again, that avoidance pattern. So I didn't want to kind of go off and not get into those things. But
Mhm.
honestly, we're going to give you some book references, kind of go into, a little bit more deep dive into a lot of these patterns that you have. Then maybe we can circle back around to this and go into a little bit more into it also, now that we kind of broke it down just a little bit. But let's just talk about how to overcome it now. And this is where you're going to kind of give us some literature, to kind of some things that you can read if you are somebody that's recognizing you are codependent. So she
So,
has some
first
books.
thing of how to overcome codependency is definitely therapy. It's mostly where it starts. A lot of people who end up in CODA, which is Codependence Anonymous meetings, are mostly referred to there by their therapist to talk and process about, their toxic relationships, how to build boundaries, and gain some information about how codependency is affecting their life. So therapy is definitely one way to do that. Then I talked about the CODA meetings with Codependence Anonymous. So it's not a place where people go and complain about their relationships. It is a place where you are able to share your experiences or current relationships that you're with. But on top of that, it's to learn how to focus on yourself and not be so other focused. It's learning how to take care of yourself, how to find ways to be, self-sufficient, and how to have your own type of self-care and to worry less about the other people. So, and then there's reading material. If you're not feeling the therapy, if you're not doing the CODA meetings, then you can do the reading material. So the first one, the book is Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. So this is a book that you can get. It's been republished multiple times, and it has a checklist in there. It has stories that you can read to see if there's anything that you can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
If you have consumed that book and you think you can need a little bit more, then there's Beyond Codependency, which is a book about how you continue to deal with your life when you're codependent. And if you do end up at Codependence Anonymous, you would get the blue book. And this book is full of, again, characteristics, patterns, and then a whole bunch of stories about how people realized that they were codependent and how they were able to recover from it. And then lastly, I don't have the book with me, but there's the Codependency Recovery Workbook by Linda Hill, which you can get on Amazon. And that one is a workbook where you can do some exercises and learn some ways of how to handle and get a control of your codependency.
And I like the codependency group. How do you actually get involved in that? I know that, I always encourage therapy and things like that, but not a lot of people know that there is a Codependency Anonymous program. How do you get involved in that?
So there is a website. It's called coda.org. So you can go to that website and you can find meetings either in person or online. Personally,
Mhm.
I'm a fan of online meetings because you're able to attend as many of them as you want in a day, week, or month. But that is the space where you would go to get all your CODA materials, what kind of groups that you're looking for, and you can actually schedule things so that way you can gain access and to be able to be a part of the group to just kind of feel for it and, learn how to share about certain aspects of your life and see what you kind of build from there.
So I like that it's an extra step because therapy is kind of you're going to talk about it. How do you feel? What is this? So it's you're getting that, but now this is more people that are kind of dealing with the same thing. So you're in a support group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're learning from somebody else's experiences. Everybody's codependency is different, but you're not focused on the trauma part of it per se. It's more how do you get out of that, break away from it, how can you cope and you deal with it. And that's what I'm learning from, I've learned from coaching. um Certification is, there are different styles of coaching with people. Therapy, it's more, let's get down to the root of it, what happened, how it happened, when did it happen, let's focus on that. But with coaching, mental health coaching, which I am, we're not necessarily going back to we'll address it briefly. Okay, let's hear about you. What's your story? What's your background? But we're focusing on building you back up from
Mm-hmm.
that. Let's not sit down and have you have a clinical condition, position for that. We're more building you up to be better now. Now we need to know you have this trauma, but okay, what are you going to do to apply it now? So let's coach you to, you know, do better, with these skills and tools and things you can go with. So I'm not your therapist, but I will listen, I will take it in. But now let's focus on what are you going to do to change that now. Let's apply some of these things that you've learned. Let's actually be active now and do it. So that's kind of what that sounds like what the anonymous thing is. It's like, okay, now
Exactly.
that we know you're dependent, okay,
Exactly.
what are you
So
gonna do about that?
definitely go over materials about what does codependency look like for you and what does your codependency look like now that you're in recovery. So there's a lot of that type of information. Another thing to note is that these meetings are for free. So that means you don't have to pay any type of fees. You don't have to donate any money if you don't want to. These are 100% self-efficient type of meetings. It's just like AA, but it's online. There's maybe some in person. It just depends on where you live.
Okay. All right. So we are coming up on an hour and a half, and I don't want to hold too much of your time. So what we're going to do here, make sure I'm not missing anything else. Got the book references. Now let's find out about you. This is called our last sip. So this is how we, if somebody's just catching the tail in the show, they didn't quite get your intro in the beginning. Tell us a little bit about who you are again and how they can find you.
All right. I am Jazz. I am the creator and author of the blog called The Art of Affection, which is my recovery blog about how I recover from codependency and toxic relationships. You can follow me on Instagram. I have new blog uploads every single Wednesday. So that's where you can get some information. Follow the Instagram. So then that way you get notifications of the new blog articles that are uploaded. Also, you can like and subscribe for my website.
Okay. And that's there right there on the screen. If you got to take a screenshot of it, I know some people are not tech savvy. So if you got to put it away and type it in or however, but please, we would love to get her the engagement if you want to kind of hear her story about how she's dealing with codependency. It's a great read. I've definitely kind of got through a few of them, and I'm still reading actually. So, and like you said, she said she's going to upload every Wednesday. And of course, we love to hear your story in more details, but of course, that will be all day for us. So go. If you love to read, you like blogs, go show her some love over there, as well as click on the description of this video. Even if you come back to it, I will have it, make sure that the link is accessible for you once this show airs, as well as I will continue to post her links everywhere so you can find her. Please leave her some Instagram feedback. I believe you can put some content on your blog too. Okay. So you can reply and leave her some feedback there. Engagement, people. One thing about it, it's always 1 month of Black history, or supporting Black businesses, but we need to do it every day. So if you can't do anything else but to go like, share, and subscribe to it and come back to it, put it as a favorite, please. It's completely free. Support Black people. That's just what I'm all about, of course, So other than that, I'm so happy to have you today. It's been amazing. And of course, you can find me. Everybody know me, Miss Maggie T Productions, for all my event planning and things like that. But you also know me from Atlanta Falcons Nation. My sports side, we're going to be having a big, huge event July 13th in Atlanta. If you haven't got your tickets, $20 tickets proceeds will go back to our teachers fund, where we're going to supply the educators some, supplies and money and things they need to not be able to come out of their pocket. Last year we did it at the General's Lounge, where we did like a brunch. They was able to have mimosas. They went home with the gift package and things like that, and some nice little neat things right before school. So sometimes we got to think about those educators, because they're taking on this generation now, and they're pulling their hair out, and some of them are quitting. So for the ones that are there and putting in that work and saying, you know what, children are our future, they need it, we commend you. So we want to give back to you. So even if you're not going to the event, the $20 donation will go towards that school fund. But until the next time, lady, the last sip is just your last thoughts, anything motivational, anything that you want to say. We're getting ready to go ahead and get out of here. And thank you, everybody that tuned in. Please leave some feedback on the show. And I love it. Now, love the intention, love everything else. We'll be back again next Monday with another guest. If you want to be on, hit me up so we can go ahead and have these deep conversations. But Miss Jazz, any motivation or any affirmation, anything you want to leave the audience with?
I don't think I have anything off the top of my head, but thank you so much for having me here. I had a blast.
Oh, I love it. I loved it. I've learned a lot about it. And it's funny that, you start listening to other people's stories. It's like, wow, that's like me. So we can relate. And I love that it's the realness of the show that everybody is open because, like we spoke before, your story can touch somebody that might not be as vocal about their abusive relationships and whatever their situation they're in now, they're seeing there is a light out of that. So stop holding on to something that you don't necessarily need. Exactly. You deserve much better. So thank you again, Jazz. It was beautiful, but we're getting ready to get out of here. Give your day back. I appreciate you guys. Share this out, people. Let's go. Peace out. Good night. And we're out.